little thought experiment I have, and get people to think about what has gone on, what is going on, and what will happen if this continues. And my fear is that it will. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about brainwashing. And I know brainwashing happens on, the CIA has brainwashed people before. Other, cult leaders have been accused, if guilty and or not guilty, of brainwashing their followers, that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about brainwashing on a societal level, whether it's from this country versus this country or individuals. The individual people in those countries, some are brainwashed, some are not, by no fault directly, just by the circumstance and because of their K through 12 indoctrination or their university indoctrination or their upbringing or whatever it is, their families, that kind of stuff, and the lack of will to go out there, the lack of search, a gene that has them go out there and try to figure out what is best or what is correct and what is not correct. But anyways, that was a little long-winded just to say this on the brainwashing level. I got to thinking about this. Like I've said before in the past, if you look in the Constitution of the United States, and even the Bible, that kind of stuff, gold and silver are in there. And the Constitution specifically says nothing should be used as a money except gold and or silver. That's it. Gold and silver are the only things that should be used for trade. It should be known as money. That's it. Well, you know that hasn't been the case, and that's not the case of what happens and what currently goes on. I mean, it was backed by gold, the fiat currency, that kind of stuff, and then, if you know, came the 30s, they did away with a lot of that, the Bretton Woods type deal, and then by 71, with the help of Nixon, took us completely off any sort of connection for the fiat currency that we use and are forced to use because it's legal tender, it's the law, quote unquote, whatever. And because of that hasn't been the case. That gold and silver have not been recognized at all, or even allowed in most states, if allowed at all, at whatever level. But anyways, so I'm thinking about that, and that's the norm. I mean, that's when I was younger. That's what I grew up thinking. Well, the paper money. That's money. That's real money. That's valuable. That means you're accumulating wealth, that kind of stuff. Because of the indoctrination, because of my parents really didn't know any better either, and the families and that kind of stuff. That's the way it was. My friends were all like it, and that was it. So the paper, that's essential. That's this stuff here. This was money. This means I can go buy what I want, what I wish. So this had absolute value in my head, and it still does to a lot of people. This has absolute value, not because it's just ink on paper, but because of what they can use they use this, what they can get for it. And that's still the case today, not as large in my perspective as it used to be. People are starting to learn here and there that, well, it's not all it was made out to be, it's not all I believed it was to be. Nowadays, the $60, these 3 pieces of paper with ink on them, that's a legal tender for all debts, public and private. Well, even that, on another note, that's coming to a pass because there are a lot of businesses that are no longer accepting cash, or no longer amounts of cash, or no longer cash in certain times, or that kind of stuff. So anyways, I'm saying this because I was brainwashed into believing this was the way to go. This is real. This is real power. This is real control. This is a real asset. This is something real that you need to think about. This is really money. This is something of importance. All right? And not brainwashed because I knew something different when I was younger, but brainwashed into believing this was the case. Well, it wasn't up until 20 years ago or whatever when I started to learn on my own and figure things out that didn't make sense. The more and more I learned, then you learn, you learn that in 1964 they took all silver out of the coinage, that kind of stuff, because of some excuse that they had made, and now the people are using for exchange is nothing but junk metals and paper. That's all. And so they're working, however much they're working, 40 hours a week or more to earn this kind of stuff. And the junk metal that really has no real value to it, no real use case to it, like silver does. So your blood, sweat, and tears to earn basically something that has no value. But because it's a law, quote unquote, or it's established and recognized and people accept it for trades, for services and goods, it's still, that still is a norm. And now fast forward to today and to what they want to do and what they are doing. Well, now, like I just said, there are places that no longer accept cash. They only accept digits. You can see I can't even see the digits I'm holding up here. They're invisible. They don't exist. They're non-existent. They exist on a digital ledger. In maybe your phone, you can see it, or your computer, you can see these digits on your ledger, which you can't even hold. They're not real. It's not real. It's a control mechanism. That's all it is. So you're working these 40 hours a week or more to earn digits that are on a screen that you can't even hold, that are not real. But that is considered legal tender. And that is what they're putting us through. Because if they can take away all that stuff, then somebody owns all of the real stuff that once was value and people sought after, that kind of stuff, and people worked for to earn gold, silver, those assets. Because then individuals and families and the millions of people accumulated the silver, the gold, the real assets over time. That way most of it stayed out of the hands of those that deem that they're in charge, the powers that should not be, is what I usually say. The government, our employees, technically is what they're supposed to be. They accumulate everything. Them and the banksters and the people on top accumulate all the real assets, the things you could grab and hold and touch, while you and I are the ones that are saving and accumulating and building up the digitalness of our wealth, or the paperness of our wealth, which this is worthless basically. Worth a little more than the digits, because you can at least burn this and start a fire or light a cigar or whatever the case may be. Blow your nose, you can't do it with digits. You can't even do that with digits. So there's even less ownership of something that you own. So back before this was established as being, the norm to use, there's a silver. And this coin wasn't back in the day. There was older versions of a silver coin, or 90% silver or whatever. This is a 1 ounce silver round. It's a buffalo. They call it. It's a buffalo. And so both of these together, roughly with today's rate, you could buy both of these roughly for $60 together, which is basically the equivalent of these 3 pieces of paper, these 3 $20 bills, pieces of paper with ink on. So this and this right now are equivalent to have the same value of it. But all in all, this right here is worth so much less than these are, because this is silver. This has real use case. You can bring this, you can bring it and to sell it to a metal dealer, a gold and silver dealer. You can sell it to a pawn shop. You can trade it. You can hold it. You can, keep it for however many years you would wish. As over time, as time goes, this is just, ink on paper. That's all this is. This is real. Silver's used in all of the stuff they're doing today with all of this environmental stuff, the solar panels, the electric cars and electronics, for everything. Silver is used. and it's being used more and more and more. So this is a real hard asset versus just this. That's it. So I mean, maybe it's a little long to say. That's what they've done. So now the younger kids, and maybe if you're under 20, are like, all you know is this. And there are younger kids that don't even know this. All they know is digits. All they know is to swipe and pay quick with a phone or whatever. It's just digits. So even the paper is not in their realm or their world. So they're working 40 hours a week, people are nowadays, and they're earning nothing. So I know everyone's heard this before, you'll earn nothing and be happy. And yeah, that's a whole big pipe dream, and that's what Klaus Schwab said it by 2030, that kind of stuff, but that's a reality because that is happening. It started happening a long time ago. Just think about this. I got a couple things to show. Like these right here. These are CDs. Real CDs, real music, real CDs. That's what this is. And I have these because I held on to all my CDs. Yes, I've made them digital so I can listen to them whenever I want, easily, that kind of stuff, and keep on hard drives, multiple hard drives, but I've kept all these real hard assets, these real CDs. Why? Because you never know. And this, if I come to a crunch, this has value. Digits have no value whatsoever. This has real value. I'm just going to like this, like even with these. So these are DVDs. All right? DVDs. Real DVDs. I have these, and I continue to purchase them when I can. Why? The same sense of the music, because it has real value. And real value means, it's a real item, like I talked about, but it also means that I have this. I have these things. I have those CDs. I have these things. And now, if something's not approved anymore, or something, they don't like this video, they don't like this because of what they said of the school system in this video, they don't like this one because of whatever it is, they can take it off the cloud, you want to call it that, someone else's hard drive. Even though you've purchased it or you have a subscription to it or whatever, they can stop you from watching it because they don't approve it anymore. Who's they? Well, the government, the people who should not be in charge. They don't approve it anymore. Our employees don't approve of these anymore in some sense, so you can't watch it. You can't listen to that song. You can't listen to that album because it's not approved anymore, because they said this or that was bad, or because they were racist, or because, fill in the blank type of deal. But if you have the real asset, they can't do that. Just like these books. Just like these books here. If I can grab this one. Shall not be infringed. So if there comes a time when I have this digital book, that's it for your Amazon, whatever, or your iPhone, or whatever you're watching it with, or reading it with, excuse me, and they don't like some of it, they can edit it, they can delete it fully, they can delete sections, they can change it, because it's not approved anymore. But if you have a real book, like all these back here, they can't do that. It's yours. It's your freedom. It has real value, real worth. It's yours. You have real ownership of it. And I'm going to go through one other thing here. I know it's maybe getting longer for you guys, but even on this level, software, this here, Adobe Creative Suite, Microsoft Office, these two things, you can't purchase these hard copies anymore. It's all digital. That's all it is digital. These are real discs with real software. The bad thing is if you have a mostly updated computer system, operating system, these don't work anymore. These versions don't work anymore. You have to use the online subscription-based versions only, or you can't use them. You can't use these programs anymore. If you have an older system on an older computer, you can still use these. Yes, it's slow, it's lagging, but back in the day, these were real. They couldn't change these. This was it. You could use these forever. You didn't have to have a subscription. You didn't have to pay monthly or yearly or whatever the case was to use them. You could use these forever, as long as you had, the correct machinery, the correct operating system, that kind of stuff. You can't buy these anymore. You can't buy these to have your own control. You can't buy these to have ownership of it anymore. You can buy digits, the digital, whatever you want to call it, the software. That's it. So why am I saying this? Because that's where it started a long time ago, and that's where it's going. And people have just jumped on it because it's easy. It's so much easier. It's so much nicer. It's so much quicker. So much more convenient. I don't have to deal with stuff here and there. I don't have to put a disc in if I want to watch a movie. I don't have to put a disc in if I want to listen to a CD. I don't have to, do X, Y, Z. I don't have to grab a book and flip through it or mark a page or that kind of stuff. I can just do it when I'm just outside. I don't have to have a bunch of books with me. I can just go to my phone and pick any book I want and just start reading where I left off. And I can just make marks in the phone or the computer or the iPad or whatever it is. I can just mark it up on there instead of having to do all the physical work of having a real book. Well, you know what? With the physical work of having to have a real book or real items, it might be a little more cumbersome if you view it that way. It might be a little more problematic. It might take a little more room to haul with, to bring with. You can't bring 50 books with you if you're going on a weekend gig, or you can't bring 10 with you if you're going on a weekend gig because, it's not viable. You don't have the room or whatever the case is. But you have those items. Those are real items that you control. You have them. No one can change them. No one can take them away from you. No one can delete them from their hard drive, which is called the cloud, that everyone puts everything. Most people put most of their stuff directly on the cloud because it's easy. Well, it's just the cloud. No big deal. Well, the cloud is somebody else's hard drive. It's a hard drive you don't have control of. You don't have control of it at all. So if they don't like something, it's gone. See you bye. Whatever the case is. So I'm just saying this because it's just so ridiculous that it seems like a lot of people haven't seen this was coming and happening. And even now, when it's accelerated so much faster, no one seems to care. I'm doing nothing more for this, but just to say, you got to be vigilant on this stuff. I mean, just think about this. I don't know anything. I'm just throwing it out there. Just an idea of maybe this is around the corner. You used to own a vehicle, right? And then it went from renting, basically leasing. That's it. And now it will probably go to a subscription-based thing with user fees only available for vehicles. I could see that for the electric vehicles. Once they want all this gasoline vehicles, once it goes electric, maybe this is 5 years, maybe this is 10 years, maybe this is 20 years down the road. But I could see a time, people don't resist it right now, that there'll be a subscription only vehicles that you don't own, but you have permission to use it for certain things that they approve of with a fee-based system on it. That's it. That could be, and that's vehicles. That might be the only option. You might not have something out in your driveway or out in the parking lot, that kind of stuff. It might not be yours. So if you come in a jam, you can't just take it whenever you want. Or you can't sell it if you have no more use for it, or you want to purchase something else. They're going to take that away from you. They're going to take that ownership away. Not saying I know, but it feels like that's coming. Also, on that same note, just like owning land, people used to own land. I mean, very few do nowadays, but people used to own land, and own their home. Now a lot's gone to renting. Now they're just renting, and they're renting from home to home, or apartment to apartment, or complex to complex, whatever. And I could see that happening where you're no longer renting. It's going to be a subscription based with user fees only. Same for your place where you live. And I don't know how they're going to do it, if it's going to be monthly, if it's going to be weekly, if it's going to be, every 2 months or whatever. I could see that happening too, because then you take away ownership from people. Somebody else owns it all, or a group of people own all the stuff. You're only allowed to use it if you subscribe, if you pay fees, if you do what you're supposed to do, if you don't resist, if you don't go against the grain, that kind of stuff. And one last thing I thought of, it's like, well, maybe if this gets severe and bad, I could see a future in America, because we're the last place where people can, get behind the Second Amendment, to have a Second Amendment, and buy and own firearms and ammunition for the most part. Is there going to be a future that we have too, where you're only able to rent or lease firearms for maybe a hunting trip, or for to shoot clays, or whatever the case is? You're only able to rent it. That's it. You have to go to a place, you have to pay whatever the fee is and whatever the XYZ is, or show your insurance for it, whatever the case is. And you can only rent it or lease it. And then once that time's done, that weekend, that day, or whatever, then you no longer have access to it. But it's going to cost you quite a bit. You can't buy ammunition. You can only rent what you're going to shoot there or use at that time. And if that happens, and I feel it could, if there's not resistance, that the next step would be a full confiscation of all firearms. I could see absolutely full confiscation of all firearms. That full confiscation of all firearms is what happens right after there's no more freedom of speech, and you've seen the freedom of speech is going away. It's been going away for the last 15 years, and dramatically over the last 5 years. And in the last couple of years, it's just been horrendous. But speech goes, then firearms go. And that goes, and then people start dying. They get controlled. And that's it. There's no other hope. So if there's time to resist, or a time to do what's best for yourself and your family, right now's the time. It's not past time yet, but we're pretty close. I hope you got something out of this. If you like this, like, share, subscribe, that kind of stuff. And as always, stay vigilant. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your health, and protect your wealth.